Hello again to another Agakala React, and today we'll be watching Avengers Endgame. Did the impossible and we failed to realize it, from the Canadian lad. Ooh, the Canadian lad is actually pretty good. He's doing all those watching it really slow and what he notices, and there's a lot of Easter eggs mostly. I haven't watched anything from him for quite a long time now, but let's just go and see what did Endgame did that we haven't realized yet. It is 5 years now since it came out. 5 more than the 5, so let's go.
Avengers! Assemble.
Alright lads, so it's been 5 years since the release of Endgame, and I'm gonna say it out loud, Avengers Endgame is the best comic book movie of all time. I just watched the movie again and I thought I have to make this video, because what this movie did 5 years ago was actually quite an impossible task. I mean, think about it. Some of the recent Marvel shows like Secret Invasion, She-Hulk, or Thor Love and Thunder didn't stick the landing at all, while Endgame was a culmination of 22 movies. Now, if Endgame hadn't existed, Infinity War would have been the best comic book movie of all time. But all of the efforts of Infinity War would have gone into vain if Endgame hadn't stick the landing. So you're not just tasked with writing a finale to 22 movies, but you're tasked with writing a finale to Infinity War. And that in and of itself should seem impossible. Every dialogue Thanos said in Endgame sounds like a quote. For example, this one.
As long as there are those that remember what was, there will always be those that are unable to accept what can be. They will resist.
And this goes to show how well written the villain of this movie was. Now,
Oh, Thanos! Thanos, it's a villain that it's extremely likable for me. I don't know why. I think it's something that people... It's kind of hard not to... Well, it's hard to agree with him on 100%. What he did obviously was terrible. Extinguish half of the population of the universe. It's not right. But then on the other hand, his way of thinking about it wasn't inherently evil, in my opinion. That's what I think about it anyway.
Point out 5 important reasons why Avengers Endgame is probably the greatest comic book movie of all time, and let's see if you and I agree on it. Number 1, the film took itself seriously. Okay, so there are a few jokes here and there, as there is in every Marvel movie, but this movie knew exactly when to be serious and when to be funny. For instance, in the opening, we see Tony and Nebula playing paper football in the moments of despair. But only 3 minutes later, Nebula sits Tony up in the chair because Tony is moments away from dying and Nebula does not want to see a hero die on the floor. Another example could be this scene.
Are you seriously telling me that your plan to save the universe is based on Back to the Future? Isn't it? No.
Here, Tony makes a joke about Scott's plan being based on the movie Back to the Future. But notice it only takes about 10 seconds for the movie to get serious again.
But I lost someone very important to me. A lot of people did. And now, we have a chance to bring her back, to bring everyone back. And you're telling me that you won't even...
That's right, Scott.
And this is one of the biggest reasons this movie connected with the audience, because the characters that we saw on the screen were taking themselves seriously. It doesn't mean there won't be any jokes or laughter in between, but Endgame does a fantastic job of balancing it out. Number 2, the film took 30 minutes to address the consequences of Infinity War. Okay, so the ending of Infinity War pretty much sent shockwaves across the world because nobody thought
Not just
Marvel
world,
was really
everywhere.
gonna let Thanos win by eliminating half the universe. So to re-establish that shock and show us the consequences, Marvel took a good half an hour.
Oh, he
to
means
let
people watching the movie. Okay, sorry, I took it too seriously.
the audience feel what's at stake here. You see, had they only shown us the beginning of the movie where Hawkeye loses his family to the snap and then move on to the scene where Scott Lang shows up at the Avengers HQ, then this is what we would have missed. Tony having a resentment towards Steve because from Tony's perspective, Cap didn't do enough. Tony's guilt of losing Peter Parker. Thor saying his first lines at the 15th minute mark, because that's how much of a shock he received after failing to go for the head. Captain America entering into space for the first time, because for a guy out of time who saw almost everything happening in the world, witnessing space was the only thing left for him. And we saw him doing that too. We learn about Thanos' true purpose, which was bringing balance to the universe. Steve doing therapy sessions with snap survivors to overcome their trauma. Scott Lang finding out what happened in his absence, and lastly, Black Widow revealing what the Avengers truly mean to her. Now, all of these scenarios are consequences of Thanos' snap. So had Marvel thought about trimming the duration of the movie and cut out these crucial scenes, yes, the movie would still be enjoyable, but wouldn't connect with the audience as much as it did. Keep in mind, there was a whole year between the release of Infinity War and Endgame, so the movie needed to lay the foundation once again for what's at stake here. You can't just expect the audience to do their homework and come prepared. Sometimes you gotta prep the audience yourself and then blow them up with twists and turns. And that's exactly what Endgame did. Number 3, authentic character development. Now, Endgame had over 30 characters playing a crucial role in the film, and at least 20 of them were major characters. But the surprising part is, all of them got their moment to shine with impactful and impressive actions. Remarkably, every character remained true to their established personalities and continued their development seamlessly. Let me give you one major example of this. The snap changes everyone after 5 years except for Steve Rogers. We see Tony now living his normal life with a daughter and a wife, Hawkeye who has chosen a darker path, Black Widow now took on the responsibilities of taking care of the Avengers, Thor has gone in full depression, and Banner, well, he got the most positive outcome from the snap where he finally found the balance between Banner and the Hulk. But Captain America is still Captain America, decent and kind. The snap hasn't significantly changed him at all. The first time we see him after the 5 years time jump, we find him leading discussions to help fellow survivors process their trauma, continuing to offer hope and optimism. So why does Steve remain unchanged while others evolve? It's because Cap has done this all before. When Cap went under the ice, he lost everyone he knew. Yes, some were still physically around, but they weren't the same people after 70 years. Like Peggy wasn't the same young Peggy anymore. Steve knows what it feels like to have lost it all. That's why he was trying to look at the brighter side.
You know, I saw a pod of whales when I was coming over the bridge.
In the Hudson.
There's fewer ships, cleaner water.
You know, if you're about to tell me to look on the bright side, I'm about to hit you in the head with a peanut butter sandwich.
Sorry. Force of habit.
And this is what I mean by authentic character development. Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely wrote Infinity War and Endgame so beautifully that it's almost impossible to find a better ending than this. They made our favorite characters go through so much trauma and shock, and yet came up with solutions that fits with the characters' personalities. Number...
I so far absolutely agree with him, because it's true. I remember when Infinity War finished, the auditorium in the cinema was quiet. You don't see that often in the cinema anymore. And obviously the same thing for when Endgame finished, because I even remember that there were pages of papers with printouts saying there is no after credit scene. So, oh no, not the smile too. Ooh, not the smile too. Ugh, I have to look out. This just really creeps me out. I just can't do the smile thing and the smile 2 trailer and stuff like that. It's just creepy. It's creepy. It's just like ugh. Gives me shivers. Woo. What I was saying. Oh yeah, and the same for the Endgame, when obviously it happened what happened. And people were kind of sad too.
Giving us a proper Thor. I know a lot of people didn't like the fact that the Russos made Thor into a fat, depressed, and apathetic type of a character, but you have to understand that they still showed him as the strongest Avenger. How? Let me just show you one detail. In this scene where Thanos was giving his godlike villainy speech, as soon as he stands up, notice Iron Man and Captain America both take a step backwards. But Thor is the only one who takes a step forward. You think this happened randomly? No. It's because the Russo brothers and the writers deliberately wrote this scene to show us that this Thor may be fat, but he is still one of the greatest warriors. And don't forget, Infinity War literally gave us the best Thor in the MCU until now. And I just absolutely love this detail. Tony and Steve take a step back because they want to be cautious. They don't want to be making mistakes. But Thor is just fearless. He has had enough. Another example could be this scene, where the MCU Trinity stands side by side against Thanos. Now notice, even before Cap and Tony arrived here, Thor was already standing alone staring at Thanos, which is why Tony literally asks him this.
What you been doing? Absolutely nothing.
So while Tony was reviving Cap, telling him to get up, Thor was standing here all alone against Thanos, and then Cap and Tony joined him. This again shows that Thor doesn't wait for help. He genuinely believes he must fight Thanos himself. Cap gets all the credits where he stood up against Thanos and his entire army, which in and of itself is one of the best cinematic scenes in the MCU, but if you think deeply, Thor did it as well. Perhaps not as much cinematic, that's all. So if you're mad that they made Thor fat, then you should also be happy that they made Thor one of the strongest Avengers in this movie.
I disagree. Well, I mean, like, I disagree with people that they're mad for Marvel making Thor fat, because like they said it himself, like he got depressed. He got deeply depressed. He lost people that he loved as well. He was blaming himself for that as well, because obviously last scene where he is there, Thanos tells him he should have gone for the head when he didn't, and he still did the snap. So it's 5 years of living like that with that guilt, the enormous guilt of pretty much being the reason why half of the population of the universe is gone. It gives you, like it takes a toll on someone.
But with actual visual scenes. Number 5, Endgame ends exactly the way Infinity War began.
Yeah.
Now to explain this, I have to take you all the way back to Infinity War. The very first line by Thanos in Infinity War was this.
I know what it's like to lose. Feel so desperately that you're right, yet to fail nonetheless. It's frightening. Turns the legs to jelly. I ask you, to what end? Dread it, run from it, destiny arrives all the same.
And what happens at the end of Endgame? Thanos loses. He felt so desperate that he was right, only to fail all the same. So what does he do? Well, you can't run from your destiny, and Thanos knows this. So he sits down and accepts it. So the very first line by Thanos in Infinity War foreshadowed the ending of Avengers Endgame. And don't forget, these two movies were written and filmed back to back. It's not like they wrote Infinity War, saw which part the audience liked, and then started writing Endgame. No, they wrote both of them together as one big piece. And that's why I believe Avengers Endgame did the impossible, and we only realize it now.
No, they're out already. Oh, yeah. Definitely something that I liked. I don't even remember when I started watching and taking so much care in actually watching every Marvel movie in the cinema. I think I have a weird feeling it was either... I think it was with the Guardians of the Galaxy, so I'm kind of late to the party. I obviously seen the Iron Man and Captain America, and what else was there? Thor was there as well, but I think I've seen those in TV, not in the cinema. So, but after watching those, actually I enjoyed it, and then I think Guardians of the Galaxy was the one that I've seen in the cinema for first. I'm not entirely sure. I could be mistaken. There was some other ones there too. It's 22 movies that we're talking about. So, so yeah. Now there's a Venom trailer for. Okay, cool. Definitely something. Honestly, I really love Tom Hardy in this. Venom. I think it's a really underrated movie. People are hating on it, but it is enough for 3 movies. So why not? I enjoy it anyway. So yeah. And where were we? There you go. Another one. So I lost the train of thought. Yeah, I don't know. Oops, no. Did I went too far? I think I wasn't... What? Did I went past?
I know a lot of people didn't like the fact that the Russos made
here
alone against Thanos.
Yeah, I think... Yeah, okay, let's start here.
5, Endgame ends exactly the way Infinity War began. Now to explain this, I have to take you all the way back to Infinity War. The very first line by Thanos in Infinity War was this.
I know what it's like to lose. Feel so desperately that you're right, yet to fail nonetheless. It's frightening. Turns the legs to jelly. I ask you, to what end? Dread it, run from it, destiny arrives all the same.
And what happens at the end of Endgame? Thanos loses. He felt so desperate that he was right, only to fail all the same. So what does he do? Well, you can't run from your destiny, and Thanos knows this. So he sits down and accepts it. So the very first line by Thanos in Infinity War foreshadowed the ending of Avengers Endgame. And don't forget, these two movies were written and filmed back to back. It's not like they wrote Infinity War, saw which part the audience liked, and then started writing Endgame. No, they wrote both of them together as one big piece. And that's why I believe Avengers Endgame did the impossible, and we only realize it now.
Oh. So that was the end. Okay, so I didn't... So that was the end and there was an ad. Oh, I didn't even realize that was the end of the video. Well, no, I agree with him. It's something that both of those movies are really good. And I laughed a lot when someone said that their kids are watching, they're old enough to watch Marvel movies and I'm gonna make them watch and wait exactly the same amount of time that I had to wait for them to watch in the cinema. That would be very interesting way of doing it, obviously, but yeah. And Canadian lad, as always, really right. I agree with him. The movies are very good, and yeah. What do you think about it? Thank you very much for watching. See you tomorrow. Bye.